codes or whatever, you have evidence. What you have to evidence is you have to evidence either the fact that you've experienced deportation or immigration issues, which includes going through the naturalization or neutralization process. That comes under it as well. Or, of course, some people have actually been deported and things like that. The other area of where you can be awarded compensation is if you can show losses of how it's impacted your life. So if you've been impacted emotionally, mentally, if you've been impacted because you were denied housing and you've had to experience homelessness or sleep on your friends' sofas or floors, all of that is included as well. So we'll go into that a bit more into the presentation. Once I've spoken about that, I'm going to discuss the application process. So what are the stages of the application once you complete it and send it off, and what their responses may be and how you can respond. Next slide, please. Thank you. So I've just explained a lot of that, but just to be clear to everyone, so everybody can understand whether you are eligible or not. If you entered the UK before the 1st of January 1973, so any day before that, up until the 31st of December 1972, if you come to the UK then you are eligible for the scheme automatically. So I hear a lot of people that are older than me that was born in islands that were British Commonwealth nations, and they say, oh, I don't think I'm eligible. And that's crazy, because you actually are. The reason why people believe they're not eligible is because it hasn't been advertised correctly. Another reason is that many people think that in order to be eligible, you have to have been deported or threatened with deportation or immigration. That's not true. You can qualify for that, and you'll probably get more money if you have been threatened with deportation and immigration. However, even if you haven't been threatened with that, you still qualify under impact of life. Another thing that people believe, which is not true, is that you are only eligible if you come on the ship, which is not true. It doesn't matter how you got here. So long as you got here before the 1st of January 1973 from a British Commonwealth nation, you are eligible for the scheme, period. So are your children, and so your grandchildren as well, and other close family members, including partners that have lived with you for, I think it's over 2 years or more. That's okay, sis. So next slide, please. Also, I want to let people know, because some people ask a question, well, my parents come then, or my grandparents come then, but they're no longer alive, so I don't qualify. That's not correct. If your family members come in that time, whether they're alive or not, you qualify for the scheme, and so do they. So you can make an application on behalf of deceased family members, but only one person can make the application. So for example, if there's a sibling group of 5 people and their parents come over to the UK before the 1st of January 1973, but their parents are no longer alive, only one of them can apply for the compensation, and it must be either their legal appointee, the next of kin, or the main person named in their will. If there's no will, then you can make a family decision of who it's going to be, but it can only be one person. I know these type of discussions in families can sometimes cause disputes, but please don't let this cause disputes between your family. You just need one responsible person, and you need to make an agreement of how the award will be shared between your family. So, who is eligible? These are all the nations that are eligible for the scheme. There's so many on there. People think that the Windrush era and the Windrush community only relate to Caribbeans, but in fact, it has all of these countries. There's South Africa, Solomon Islands, there's even Sierra Leone, Seychelles, St. Lucia, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Tanzania, the Bahamas, the Gambia, Tonga, Trinidad and Tobago. There's Uganda, that's even on there, Zambia. I'm sure someone from Ghana recently told me that their application has been accepted by the Home Office as well. So by the way, a lot of my information is from the government website or from other forms of research. I haven't imagined any of this information. It all comes from a factual-based research. So there's many other nations, and if you're not sure if your nation is on there, you should either apply or you can call the Home Office for advice. But I would say just apply and let them make a decision of whether you're eligible or not. I can see someone with their hand up. I'm going to take questions at the end of the presentation. So please, if you have questions, write them down or remember them, and I will respond. I will ask questions at the end of the presentation. But as I was saying, people have been calling the Windrush helpline and spoken to the Home Office and asked if they're eligible, and the Home Office have been giving people incorrect advice. Please just apply and let them make a decision of whether you're eligible or not. Next slide, please. Sorry, Dominica. Dominica. Okay, but as I said, I'll take questions towards the end. To meet the eligibility criteria, not only do you have to have entered the UK before the 1st of January 1973, but you should also meet some of these criteria as well. But that's the first criteria that makes you eligible, period. If you pay for nationalisation or neutralisation, or if you've ever been to your home nation or outside of the UK since you arrived here and you were told that you had to prove your right before you were allowed to come back to the UK, and you've been asked to pay fees and stuff to come back, which many people have, then you can put all of that information on here. You can claim if you've had losses because you could not prove your right to stay in the UK. So some years ago, I think it was about 2011 or 12, the UK government, the Home Office, written to people and asked people who are British subjects by law to prove their right in the UK, and some people couldn't prove it, and unfortunately some of those people have been deported or been held in deportation centres, even been sat down on aeroplanes, and then they've been told, oh sorry, we can't deport you. But this is the reason why, and this is why they're giving the compensation out. You can also claim if you're the partner, child, brother or sister or parent of someone who come in that time and couldn't prove their right to stay. So some of you may have arrived before the 1st of January 1973 and then brought your family over, and your family may not have come before the 1st of January 1973, but because they're your sibling or child or partner or parent, they can also claim. They can claim on the basis that what you've experienced has had an impact on their life, because of course, if your loved one's getting deported, or if you're getting left in your home nation because your loved ones are coming here because they're promised a better life, then that has an impact on your life, and it can have lifelong effects. You are eligible, as I said earlier. You can claim on behalf of someone who come in that time but they're no longer alive. If you do fit into that category, then let me know, because we'll speak at the end. There's 3 applications. There's 3 different types of applications. You can only apply for one type of application per person, and this can be very confusing, so it's very, very important to listen keenly. So the different types of applications, first and foremost, there's the primary claimant. The primary claimant is the person who come before the 1st of January 1973. Now, following this meeting, you will need to download and print the forms, right? When you print the forms, please make sure it's a correct form, because if you write your information on a form, which can take so long and it can take so much mental and spiritual energy, if you write it all on the wrong form, they'll say, oh sorry, you're not eligible. You think you're not eligible for the scheme, but really you've just written it on the wrong application. And to write something like that twice, it's a lot. It takes a lot on the soul. So yeah, please make sure that you're downloading the correct form. So as I was saying, the primary claimant for application form is for the people who entered the UK before the 1st of January 1973. The close family member form, which is the son, daughter, parents, siblings, partner, or even cousins. Some of us grew up with our cousins like siblings. if you're that person, you need to apply for the close family member form, the close family member form. And then the third application for our family members who are no longer alive but who arrived in that time, them application forms are called the application for the estate. So when you see those free applications on the government website, that's what they mean basically. So the government website details, you're all going to need this because that's the only place where you can get the forms from. It's I will show it at the end as well, www.gov.uk / the Windrush Compensation Scheme. That's www.gov.uk / the Windrush Compensation Scheme. There is a category where it states that if you came to the UK from any country before the 31st of December 1988 and you're now settled here, that you can apply. But in all honesty, I don't. It's all right. I don't understand what that criteria is. I've done my main research on the people that actually come from the Windrush era. So you need to prove your losses. If you were born in the UK, you didn't come then, you're the child or family member, you need to prove how you've suffered due to being related to that person. So that's what we're going to go into now. But first I must say, so on the application form, when you get the application form, you have to first of all disclose whether you're the person who come before the 1st of January 1973 or whether you're the relative of someone who come then. You have to disclose that first and foremost. Then, if you're the child or family member of someone who come then, you then have to explain how you're related to someone from that era. So, for example, on my application, I've written about my father a little bit, because you have to write your own application based on you and what you've suffered. But I would still speak about my dad, when he come, where he come from, what method of transport he took here, whether he was invited by the Queen or not, and then I would start to speak about how that affected my life. Next slide, please. So this slide is about applying on behalf of an estate. So if we're applying for our deceased family members, you must first and foremost prove that the person who died would have been eligible for the scheme as a primary claimant. So you have to prove how your grandma or grandfather or brother or sister or whoever come in that time. Some of us still have documents of our parents, such as the naturalisation papers, their birth certificates, their death certificates and things like that. Those are the type of documents that state where a person was born. Some of us still have travel documents of our family members who come at that time, or some type of document from the Home Office to state you've come in this time or you're going through certain processes or whatever. Some of us, you may not have the travel documents, but what you do have is if you have your parents' birth certificate, that shows where they were born and in what year. And then if you have your birth certificate and you were born here, say like in 1972, 1974, whatever, if you were born then that's evidence that your mum was here before that time in order to give birth to you. So there is ways to prove it, even if we think that we don't have evidence. So yeah, as I said, only one person can claim, and you must have the legal, you must have permission from the next of kin. If you don't, then you're at risk of facing a lawsuit, and this application scheme gives people £1,500 to fight each other in court, and that's probably intentional, so please, don't take that route, and make sure that you have an agreement between your family members, or don't apply for the deceased if you can't make an agreement. You can still apply for yourself, whether you apply for your elders or not, you can still apply for yourself. If you're applying on behalf of one of our deceased family members, you have to provide their death certificate. You have to provide a photocopy or an original copy of the probate or letters of administration that state that you are the appointed person that can deal with their estate. And any type of proof of their identity, so passports, driving license, whatever. There may be alternative forms of evidence, but again, if you are going through that process, speak to me afterwards, because there's some other things that I'd like to discuss with you. Can you press next, please? So the type of evidence that you need when you submit your claim, you need to, this is for everyone, so whether you're a primary claimant, a close family member, whether you're applying on behalf of a state, you have to prove your identification, so a photo type ID, passport, driving license, whatever, and then you need to evidence your address, so a letter from like a bill or whatever, and then yes, that letter where you prove your address, it has to be dated within the last 3 months. There's 2 different groups of ID that you can use. This information, by the way, is listed on the applications itself, and it's on the government website. This is where I've taken this from, so it is there. So yeah, you need one type of photo ID, so you can use your BNP card as well if you have one from the Home Office, and then two pieces of ID in the second group, which are just bills, kind of paper evidence. Next slide, please. There's other relevant evidence that you can use to prove that you've been here. Like, for example, people that have been experiencing homelessness throughout the years, they may not have many belongings or documents, but there's other ways that they can prove their way here. So one person that I helped previously, he'd been homeless for a number of years, and he didn't have nothing basically other than the clothes that he stood in, but we still managed to prove how long he'd been here, because he'd been in prison for a number of years. He was in care as a child, and then he was in prison. He's been in prison, in and out of prison. There's people that have been in mental health, stuff like that. But I know that some people don't want to share those records, but trust me, the more that you prove, the more money that you're going to get. And I'm telling you this because I've successfully claimed. I got my money in February last year, because I claimed in 2020. I have someone else that's with me here today as well, my father, who's also been a successful claimant. I supported him to apply in 2019. He was one of the first people to apply. Yeah, so he was one of the first people to apply. I supported him to apply as soon as I found out about the scheme, and he was the first to get his award as well. So he got over £50,000, so he'll speak about that a little later. He's been here since 1971, so the scheme is definitely 100% real, yeah, but you have to evidence it. The more evidence that you have, the more of an award you're going to get. So yeah, other records like DWP benefits. Some people have had child benefits or other forms of benefits. That's evidence to prove that you've been here all this time, even if you've got no other proof. National insurance number. That's evidence that you've been here all of this time. Health records, NHS number, doctor's records, all of that is evidence that you've been here all this time. If you've been in education, or if your children have been in education, your name will have been down on their school as their parent, or if it's for yourself, you can go to your previous schools, if they're still open, and ask for evidence that you was a student in that school. All of that is evidence that you've been here. There's always a form of evidence. If you've got driving license or anything like that, that's also evidence. If you've ever served in armed forces, that's evidence. If you've ever been in employment, you can get references from your previous employees to prove that you've been here. Next slide, please. So, when you're filling out the application form now, this is for everyone, whether you're a close family member or a primary claimant, or you're applying for your deceased family members. These are the areas of categories where you can put your information down. So some people may think, well, I was born in England and I didn't, I've never faced immigration and deportation issues, so how can I be successful? Well, the thing is have you ever had issues within employment? Have you ever faced racism? Have you ever been sacked or suspended or treated unfairly? Have you ever been told that because you can't prove your right that you're British, that you cannot work? Have you ever been detained, deported, or even returned? So, as well, for people that have been deported from this country and they're in their home nations now, but they come before the 1st of January 1973, they still qualify. They still qualify. They can download the application from the government website, and there's an email address where they can complete it and email it back to the Home Office for them to be assessed. So they can still apply. Housing. So as I said, some people, they've had issues with housing. Some people have never had their own tenancy, or some people have had to sofa surf all of their lives or for long periods of time. That goes on their health. Because of how stressful these matters can be and how stressed people must feel if they're at risk of deportation or treated like criminals when they actually haven't broken the law, or family members like myself who had to experience my dad in a deportation centre, scared, thinking that he was going to be taken away. I had to go to court and be an surety for my elder brother as well to try and get him bail because he was withheld in a deportation centre. He wasn't even born in the Caribbean. So yeah, it's crazy, but it doesn't affect our life and it affects our emotional well-being as well. So how do you prove that you've suffered emotionally or whatever? Well, have you ever been to the GPs and said that you've got depression or anxiety, or that you feel stressed, or that you're struggling emotionally? Even if you've had counselling, if you've had any type of therapeutic services, even if social services have been to your house and questioned you about your abilities or willingness to parent, that is evidence that you have struggled. Now, I know some people would not like to put that on the form, but trust me, that's proof that you've struggled. Even proof that you've been on benefits. This country say that they award benefits to people who live on a low income. If you've successfully received benefits, then that's evidence that you've struggled. All of that needs to go down on the form. And what you then need to say is that, because you've been through these things, or your family members have been through these things, it's impacted your life in this way. You've struggled because of A, B, D, and C. Provide evidence for it. And then that's what they base the award on. The more things you put in there, some of us are too proud to be putting some things in there, but trust me, the more you put in there, the more they will pay you. And that is factual, just like any compensation claim. You don't have to meet every category. Even if you entered the UK before that date and you just paid for your naturalisation and neutralisation, but you've never had no more issues here, you've never really had issues with employment or housing because you were nationalised, and but your impact on your normal daily life, coming here as a child or being left in your home nation as a child, growing up without your parents, that can affect us mentally and emotionally for our life course. There's, next slide please. There's a psychological condition called maternal deprivation, which means that you've been deprived of your maternal connection to your mom. Many people that come from the Windrush era experience that, and it's not because our mothers or grandmothers were bad, but it's actually because they were given a false promise. It's a form of manipulation, it's a form of exploitation. They went to a third world nation and promised the people a better life with a better house and a better job, and they come to this country and they were called all types of racist names. They were treated in all disgusting ways. The police would turn a blind eye to it, they still do sometimes, for them to be treated as though they're not British, when in fact they were born that way. But this is why you need to put everything down on the form. All of those, a lot of our elders, and even some of us in my age range, we don't have good relationships with our siblings or with our family. Some of us have siblings that live on the next street or around the corner, and they do not speak. And the reason being, it's not because you're wicked or she's wicked or he's wicked or he's wicked. It's because the way the trauma has affected all of us and how it's gone down into our generations. But that's also why your grandchildren can claim as well, because of intergenerational trauma. If you grow up with traumatized parents, the way that they parent you is not going to be as effective as if they were not traumatized. The way they were the way they brought you up, and if you got licks as a child or you were treated certain ways, that's probably because your mom can't cope or your dad can't cope. So, you know, all of those things, you need to be putting it down on the form. If you didn't grow up with your parents, put that on the form and state why. This is one of the last slides on the presentation. There's a telephone number for the Windrush helpline. You can call this if you want to, but they have been giving people wrong information on the phone, telling people they're not eligible when they are, and we think it's a deterrent to make to prevent black people from applying to this scheme. So the telephone number for the Windrush helpline is 0800 678 1925. That's 0800 678 1925. But beware, because when you call that number, they're going to try and promote a company to you called We Are Digital. We Are Digital are a group of white people from North Yorkshire or somewhere who got £1 million funding to run these type of schemes, and to this day they haven't run one. When I first developed my presentation, I developed my presentation based on letting my dad know about the scheme and then speaking to people in the community and realising barely anyone knew about it. So because I knew that I couldn't help one person each time, I knew that if I do events I could help many people at once. I went to the Home Office and asked them for funding because they were supposed to be giving £25,000 away, up to £25,000 away for these type of events. I sent them my presentation. They said to me they could fund me £1,000 so long as I put their logo on my presentation and let them speak at my events. So I said to them, it's all right, I'm good, keep the £1,000, I'll just run it out. And then they stole some of my information from here and put it onto the government website, but that's all right though. So we're coming to the end of the presentation. I'm going to let my dad speak for a few minutes before we have to let the next group of people in. But again, thank you very much for coming today. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Well done. Yes. Hold on.
My daughter is keeping this presentation because of what the government tried to do to her father. Let me give you a bit history about me. I came here the 11th of November 1972, and by February 1974, I joined the British Army. I did 6 years in 2nd Battalion, the Parachute Regiment. I fought 3 wars for this country, right? But yet, I got in trouble. When I came out the army, I was a big mess up in my head. I got in trouble. And the next thing I know, I'm in a deportation camp. They tried to deport me. I said, what about my service in the army? And then when I went and checked out the law, if you came here before the 1st of January 1973, you're exempt from deportation. Yet they tried to deport me. The other liberty they took, my son, who was born in Berlin Military Hospital, they tried to deport him too. How about that? And yet, at his birth, they gave him a British birth certificate. So, with little Miss here being educated, being university educated and all of that, she came to and rescued me and my son. Anyway, they did reward me, but that's not what I'm here to tell you about rewarding me. What I found out is that other people can get the same kind of reward for being a Windrush generation. In my case, it runs right down to all my children, down to my grandchildren, and down to my wife or baby mothers can get reward. So, yes. Well, I've got 9 children. I've 9 children. Exactly. Anyway, thank you very much.
Can I take a couple of questions, please, because we're going to have to end this event. Okay, all right, I'll start at the front rows. Go, please. Yeah. Yes. 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 Let me answer. One moment, one voice, thank you.
Okay, so I'll start again. I'm born in 1979. Can you all hear me at the back? Yeah? My grandparents came here on the ship. They're deceased, and my parents came. They came on a plane, but they came probably in the 50s and so forth, yeah? So can us that are born here, that we are meant to be British, my generation in the 70s, can we apply, and my children, I've got a 26-year-old, 21-year-old, 8-year-old, and a 9-week-old in my arms. So is this eligible for the young generation, the younger black British community here?
So, if your parents come before the 1st of January 1973, your grandparents, yes, so you can claim through your grandparents or your parents. Your grandchildren can claim. It's up to 3 generations per person. So from your grandma and granddad, it's 3 generations up to you. But because your parents come before then, that goes to your children. So your children will be eligible. There's no minimum age. And by the way, the minimum award that you're going to get is £10,000 is a minimum per category. So if you qualify just for impact of life, that's at least 10 grand you're getting. If you qualify for impact of life and immigration and deportation, that's £20,000 at least. Yep.
Also, so my father, I'll say it, but he's gone through the criminal justice system here. So for some of my life was incarcerated. Was he able to apply? And now he's back in Jamaica. What do we do for those who are back home? How do we apply?
So as I said, if you've been in prison before, then that's more evidence that you've experienced separation. My dad has as well. He doesn't mind me sharing it, and I put that on the form because obviously it affects us growing up without him and having to visit him and all of that. If you come here before the 1st of January 1973 and you're now back in your home nation, you can still apply. You apply by going onto the government website, downloading the correct form, filling it out and emailing it off. Yes, please. Yes. So you apply for each person separately. If the sister said that her parents come and they're both deceased, can she apply for them individually? Yes. It's one claim for mom, it's one claim for dad, and it's still one claim for yourself as well. So you do one estate claim for mom, one estate claim for dad, and one for yourself as a primary claimant. In a family, you can do basically one estate claim for each parent from one person if they're no longer alive, one for yourself, then one for each child that you have. Yes? Okay, one more question. I'm really sorry. Yes, sis. Sorry. Okay, I'll come to that. Yeah, the contact details are coming at the end. Sorry. You say that you don't have evidence. Have you got medical evidence? Yeah. Oh, 1 second though, but who did you live with at that age? No. Okay, so you have evidence that you would have lived with that person because she would have been your next of kin at school and on your medical records. There will be a death certificate. There will be a death certificate of when your parents died, yes, and then the issues that you would have experienced in childhood growing up, if there was any social service, any health records, any counselling records and things like that. Sorry sis, you asked the question at the beginning, yes? Names don't correspond with their family names. How do they go about that? But do you have a birth certificate though? It's not on the birth certificate either. Oh, okay then. So you know, I had this issue as well. So My mum didn't put my dad on my birth certificate, but I still applied as my dad's daughter. They said to me that I had to prove that he was my father. So all I'd done is called the GP and registered my dad as my next of kin. And then 2 weeks later, I called the GP again and asked for evidence. Are they no longer here? So is there some type of evidence? What about the funeral booklet? Was you named in there as a child? Yes, that's evidence.
What did you have a criminal record?
And is she willing to share it with you? If not, then you need to use the scheme. You need to use the scheme. There's a specific amount of funding for that. I'm really sorry, I cannot take any more questions. Cheryl's going to announce our contact details of how you can ask us more questions about this scheme, and that's where you'll see more flyers to our further events as well. We will be doing an event soon where we're going to be supporting people to actually fill out the applications. So this is where you're going to find the details.
Is there a time frame? Is there a time frame on the public
There's
sector?
no deadline yet, so everyone needs to apply, but apply as soon as possible.
Right, everyone, no one go out the front. If you guys can exit down the back, because you won't be able to get out the front.
Anybody with a disability? Let's get them out first. We exited to the back of the building.